Ladies and gentlemen, it's now my pleasure to welcome to our meeting the Right Honourable Nigel Dodds, Member of Parliament. I'd also like to welcome his wife, who he's brought along with this evening, Diana, who is also a Member of the European Parliament. So we've got two for the price of one. Nigel is one of the most powerful figures in the House of Commons, leading the Democratic Unionist Party, whose support enables the government to have a majority at Westminster. Nigel studied law at Cambridge University. He graduated with a first-class degree and won the Winfield Prize for Law. After graduation, he was called to the Bar of Northern Ireland and worked for 12 years at the Secretariat of the European Parliament. When he was 26, Nigel was elected to Belfast City Council and has twice served as Lord Mayor. He's also served as a member of the Northern Ireland Assembly and as Minister of Finance in the Northern Ireland Executive. In 2001, he was elected Member of Parliament for Belfast North. In 2010, he became a Privy Councillor and leader of the Democratic Unionist Party in the House of Commons. Nigel also speaks to the DUP on constitutional issues, foreign affairs and Brexit. Nigel campaigned for the United Kingdom to leave the European Union and rejects any deal with the EU that would separate Northern Ireland from the mainland UK. Ladies and gentlemen, could you please welcome the Right Honourable Nigel Dodds.
Thank you very much indeed, Barry, for that very kind welcome, and apologies for my late arrival. I was actually at a meeting of the Coordination Committee, which is a committee set up under the Confidence and Supply Arrangements between the Democratic Unionist Party and the Conservative Party. Although I felt when I was in that meeting, given the loyal support that the DUP has given to the government on vital votes, that there might have been more need for a coordination committee for the Conservative members alone. Three-quarters of the votes that were passed in the recent EU withdrawal bill, the main bill that takes us out of the European Union and repeals the European Communities Act of 1972, three-quarters of those votes, had the Democratic Unionist Party voted the other way, three-quarters of them would have had a majority of 5 or less, and in half of them the government would have been defeated. So we are very proud in the Democratic Unionist Party of our role in ensuring that we have a government that will deliver on the people's verdict in the referendum of 2016. That is, of course, as well as the other issues that we want to see delivered, which is keeping Jeremy Corbyn out of number 10 Downing Street. Because not only would that be dangerous for the UK in our view, but it would be very dangerous indeed for Northern Ireland given its past history of support for terrorism, unfortunately. But it is absolutely vital for this crucial period in our nation's history that we have a government that will actually carry through on the referendum result. So in terms of the DUP, I want to speak tonight a little bit about the Northern Ireland issue and the Irish border issue, which by now has of course become one of the main issues in the entire Brexit debate. It shouldn't be, but it has become that. And part of the reason that it has become so big an issue is the Irish government, of course, pushing that agenda, Brussels using the Irish government to try to shape a Brexit, which is to their liking, and of course faults on the part of the British government's negotiating stand, which has allowed this issue to assume a preeminence and a priority which it should never have had. We want a Brexit that is good for the Union. It means that all parts of our constituent United Kingdom must benefit from it. We want a Brexit that doesn't do damage, of course, to Northern Ireland economically, constitutionally, or politically. And we've always said that we will judge the outcome of any agreement if it's reached, and I tend to agree that it's maybe less likely now as a result of recent events than it was previously. We're going to judge the outcome of any agreement and negotiations against the main criteria on which the referendum was fought by the Leave side, in which I was proud to be a part, which was taking back control of our borders, our money and our laws. We must always judge everything against those fundamental principles. We don't want a second referendum, and we will always be good friends with our European neighbours and member states. The European Union has done good things in terms of Northern Ireland, but then it's been using our money to do all those good things anyway. So it's not as if we owe a massive debt of gratitude. We're only getting back a part of what we've already paid in. So in terms of Northern Ireland, the issue of the land border with the Irish Republic, identified of course early on as one of the main priority issues which had to be settled as part of the withdrawal agreement. Citizenship rights, the bill, the divorce bill, and the Northern Ireland border. In our view, it was a mistake to ever agree the sequencing of the negotiations. Yes. We advised very, very strongly, and we have been through many, many negotiations in Northern Ireland, more than we would care to remember. And you know, overall, we haven't done too badly at the negotiations. And what we suggested throughout, from the outset, was, as we did in Northern Ireland, that you take a parallel approach. So whilst we're negotiating the future relationship, we should also be negotiating the divorce bill, the citizenship rights, and of course we settle the Northern Ireland border issue in the context of the overall agreement. Instead, what happened was that the government decided to have these sequenced series of steps which allows the EU and certain member states to use choke points in the negotiation, to lever concessions before they actually ever get on to the main negotiations, which is the trade deal. And we're only now dealing with these issues and grappling with them. So that is a major problem in all of this. The customs issue and the Irish border. I speak as someone whose father was a customs officer on the Irish border. I live about 15 miles from the Irish border. We pass it through that border a considerable number of times. Diane sometimes travelling to Brussels, me doing other bits of business, meeting people and all the rest of it. To listen to some people, you'd think there wasn't any infrastructure or border there at all. But the reality, of course, is that every time I cross that border, I pass cameras that are set up not by the British government, but by the Irish government. And there are buses and coaches carrying people that are stopped regularly for immigration purposes. There's a different VAT regime in the Irish Republic compared to Northern Ireland. We have a different currency, the euro and the pound sterling. There are all sorts of fiscal differences and all the rest of it. And yet, we manage to get along with no particular problems. There are no particular issues. We have a common travel area. I am sure, like me, you're somewhat bemused at times to listen to some of these Newsnight reports and special documents. They go and visit people on the Irish border, and they tend to visit people of a particular persuasion who say, I don't want to stop. I remember the bad old days, and I don't want to stop crossing the border. We cross all the time. Under the common travel area arrangements, which have been in existence a many years before we joined the European Union, and which is not the result of being in the European Union, we have had free movement of people within the British Isles for decades. And it's already been agreed that that will continue, so nobody is going to get stopped at the border or checked at the border. That will continue. What we're talking about is goods. And on that, of course, as has already been alluded to, there are sensible, practical, technical, modern approaches to customs arrangements which can overcome any kind of unnecessary friction or stoppages at any international border. We visited recently with Lars Carlson, the man who produced the report for the European Parliament's Constitutional Affairs Committee, who was the Deputy Director of Customs in Sweden, and who produced a report which set out that this could all be done seamlessly, backing up what the head of the HMRC said in evidence to one of the House of Commons Select Committees. But because the Brussels bureaucracy, the member states, and particularly the Irish government, wish to ensure not that we have really a seamless border. That is not the main objective. The main objective is to say that it is impossible to have any kind of seamless travel or customs arrangements without the United Kingdom or Northern Ireland being inside the customs union and the single market. It's been driven by a political objective to bring about a certain type of Brexit, which won't be Brexit at all. That's what the Irish border issue is. And that is why we were very, very concerned back in December of last year. And I'm sure you will remember, so much has happened since, that it's hard to keep track of the back and forward of all these EU negotiations and where we are in Parliament and all the rest of it. But the Prime Minister went to Brussels and was about to sign up to the December protocol on Northern Ireland, and the Democratic Unionist Party had to step in at that point and say, sorry, if you sign up to that, we won't get Brexit, and we certainly will see the United Kingdom damaged. And we managed to insert into that protocol an agreement that the Northern Ireland would have seamless trade and there would be no barriers between ourselves and the rest of the United Kingdom. But we still made the point at that time, to the Prime Minister and to the government, that the very idea of a backstop, so-called, an insurance plan for Northern Ireland was completely wrong-headed. Because what you were doing is putting the cart before the horse. You were agreeing what was going to happen on the Irish border before you knew anything about the overall UK-EU relationship. And of course it allows Brussels, and it allows the Irish government in particular, to say, well, you must agree to certain things that will prevent the border, namely staying in the single market, the customs union, because we just reject technical solutions. They don't give any reasons why they reject them, just reject them. Just say it's magical thinking. They don't back it up with any evidence. And when you actually face them with it, as we did when we met Michel Barnier, he just refuses to answer. In fact, one of his traits is that when he speaks in negotiations, he's a very fluent English speaker, but when he gets a bit of hard questioning, and when he gets some answers given to him, for instance, he was talking to us about the Belfast Agreement, and one of the chaps who was sitting beside me had helped to actually author some of the amendments to the Belfast Agreement, but then he started to speak in French, so that we couldn't actually address the issue directly. But the point is that the big mistake in all of this has been to make the Irish border issue an issue that had to be solved prior to the overall agreement. Similarly, the decision to agree the withdrawal bill, the money issue, before we actually had the future relationship, was a catastrophic error. One of the things, and Diane is a member of the European Parliament, but has been a strong opponent of European federalism from the day she got elected to the European Parliament, in line with our party policies, and campaigned strongly to leave, even though it's going to cost her job, and that's one job we don't mind losing. I'm allowed to say that, she can't. But one of the things that's and we lose sight of this in the UK because our press doesn't cover it, but one of the things that's striking when you go and speak in Europe and you listen to European parliamentarians is how frightened they are at the prospect of losing the 39-40 billion pounds worth of UK money. They are really, really worried about that, and worried about the ongoing commitment by the UK to some of these issues. And we underestimate that, and it's a card that we have thrown away in negotiations, which was needlessly thrown away at far too early a stage. So what we are in Northern Ireland, and speaking again as a Northern Ireland politician, what we really resent is the fact that certain issues like the peace in Northern Ireland, like the Belfast Agreement, that these have all been used in this argument. There is no threat to the Belfast Agreement. The Belfast Agreement only mentions the European Union once. It is thousands, tens of thousands of words long. It only mentions the European Union once, and then only tangentially. The Supreme Court has ruled the Belfast Agreement doesn't affect the outcome of Brexit, and Brexit doesn't affect the Belfast Agreement. We've already had the highest court ruling that. But those who argue that it damages the peace process and the political stability in Northern Ireland are the people that I think need to be called out most. And we've had former Prime Ministers using peace in Northern Ireland as a weapon against Brexit. This is outrageous. It is disgraceful. Even Sinn Féin, well, of course Sinn Féin used to be vehemently anti-European Union and anti-everything to do with Brussels up until about, well, to the Brexit referendum. But then because the United Kingdom and most of the Unionists voted Brexit, they decided to turn against it. But not so long ago, when the Irish Republic was being screwed into the ground by the Trioca of the International Monetary Fund and the European Commission and others, and of course UK lent the Irish Republic £6 billion at the lowest interest rates, lower interest rates than the European Union did, and the European Central Bank. The fact of the matter is that, we really find that the use of the peace process as a weapon to derail Brexit is really outrageous. Sinn Féin themselves have made it clear that whatever their objections, there's not going to be any return to violence. We're talking about a handful of dissident Republicans causing a bit of vandalism on the border, which should easily be taken care of. And in any case, there won't be any infrastructure on the border because you don't need it. The Irish Republic aren't going to put it up. Brussels are the only people who are suggesting that it might have to happen. And they've already said that everybody should display flexibility and think of imaginative solutions. We're not going to put up any infrastructure in the Irish border, are they? So, ladies and gentlemen, what we are very, very clear about is in Parliament, we're going to make sure that the misuse of the border issue, the Northern Ireland issue, is not allowed to derail Brexit, a good Brexit, a proper Brexit, a real Brexit, for the whole of the United Kingdom. And that is very, very important to us. In fact, it is the paramount issue. Now, there's much more that I could say about recent events, the white paper and all the rest of it. We are very, very concerned about aspects of the white paper. We're happy that it does ensure that the Northern Ireland, rest of the United Kingdom relationship is as one, that there won't be any giving in to the EU in its attempt to break up the United Kingdom constitutionally. And one of the issues that we are really, really angry about is the fact that all this pay of lip service to the Belfast Agreement and ensuring that it is preserved, at the same time driving a coach and horses through the first principle of the Belfast Agreement, which is the consent of the people of Northern Ireland to remain part of the United Kingdom. They would actually create a separation between part of the United Kingdom and another part. So we have to watch that very carefully. Any backstop that is agreed has to be a UK-wide backstop. It can't be one that separates Northern Ireland off. And I've heard another argument, which is that, well, Northern Ireland can have the best of both worlds. You can have access to the UK market, and you can have access to the single market and the customs union. But of course, having the best of both worlds and having your cake and eating and a free lunch, those things never tend to be quite right when you look at the details. The reality, of course, would be that under the proposals we forward, Northern Ireland have to follow the rules of the single market. We would be bound by the rules of the customs union. We wouldn't have any say in those rules. The rest of the United Kingdom would be going off doing its own thing under those circumstances. We would become economically detached, and very soon people would say, well, your rules are not being set by the British Parliament or by the British government. Your rules are being set by Brussels. And who's going to represent you in those negotiations? Wouldn't be long before people would say, you're better off going and making your representations to the Irish government than you are to the British government. As an MP for Belfast, I would have more power speaking to the Irish Foreign Minister than I would to my own ministers. Now that is not acceptable under any circumstances whatsoever. So thank you for listening to me. I've maybe gone on too long, but rest assured we will play our part in Parliament to deliver the Brexit that we all want. Thank you.